Chapter 191. The delicious scent of a dying meal wafts through me. It's close. I dash towards it, no longer having the energy to avoid salivating. I'm hungry, oh so hungry, but I'm always hungry, so it hardly matters. I have to save them. This one and the next one and the next one and the next. I'm good at it, because my nose only smells prey if it's still alive. I find the pile of rubble the smell is coming from. My muscles burn and ache, and I could wipe it all away with just one bite, but I don't even let myself think about it as I wrap my claws around the shattered stone and heave. I'm here, I've got you, I reassure the smell, just in case they're conscious. I look a little scary, but I promise I'm not going to hurt you. As I lift up the rubble, I finally spot the prey underneath it, its eyes weakly fluttering open to stare at me in fear. The islands are no longer moving above us, so it's impossible to know for sure how much time has passed, but I estimate that it has at least been over a day since this town was leveled and so many of its inhabitants trapped or killed. This meal, this person has been without food or water the entire time. Every second I waste with them, another meal winks away from the edge of my senses, dead. Yet I can't afford to rush either, or else I risk killing the people in front of me. For any number of reasons, really. Understandably, the person I'm trying to save now looks rather terrified. I'm a nice Vrothizo, I promise, I insist, using two arms to push the block of stone I'm lifting above my head so I can get close enough to reach another arm out and grab the human. They don't at all seem like they want to come with me, but they don't really have the strength to resist. It's okay. I'm going to get you some water. I promise. It's okay. I promise, I'm not going to eat you. I'll kill myself before I do. Lifting them up out of the way, I let the rubble drop back down. Then I start running slowly, because I can't accelerate too fast with a human in my arms or else it will hurt them. The gradual pace is excruciating, but the warm body I hold to my chest, pumping with blood and lush with anima, is far more excruciating still. It's okay. I can keep going. I have to. A bit under a minute later, I make it to the clearing by the spring where the local Templars have set up camp. They eye me warily as I approach, still nervous around me even after the thousands of dying people I've brought them for rescue, even after the half-dozen times one of them has attacked me in a panic and I've had to avoid them. They're slowly getting used to me, but none of them have lived in Skyhope and none of them know I used to be a Templar myself, even if only for a little bit. They don't trust me at all. I appreciate that. The people I know have been trusting me a little too much, in my opinion. I suppose a little trust would be nice just so they stop getting in my way, though. Vrothizo. One of them shouts, hunkering behind their shield and raising their sword. Wait, isn't this that other one? A second one answers hesitantly, though he also raises his weapons at me. Grinding my teeth in frustration, I start to slow down. I don't want to have to dodge swords while holding someone on death's door. Is there another Vrothizo around? I call out to them. I can handle it for you. Ideally, of course, the Templars will have already killed any other of my kin. But part of me hopes that they fail to do so, because I am so desperately hungry that even the foul blood of my own kind would be a welcome meal. I need something. Anything. But I just can't stop now, not unless it's for something serious. Like a Vrothizo. I start sniffing around for one of my own kind, since that will probably give me better information than just waiting for the Templars to respond anyway. Nothing. The tantalizing scent of human is too thick, it's too hard to focus on anything else. I suppose that means if there is one of my kind around, they at least probably aren't very strong. Look, this one is dying, I call out again, indicating the human in my arms. Can you just take them and get them some water and whatever else they need without stabbing me? The Templars hesitate, but someone calls out behind them. Get out of its way, boys, the captain in charge snaps. It's been helping all damn day, just let it. Sighing with relief, I jog forwards, nodding a brief thank you to the captain as I run past his subordinates and take the person in my arms to the medical tent. I quickly drop them off and leave before I can bother anyone too much, and sprint back out of the camp. Just keep going. Just keep saving people. More and more until there is no one left alive. Then, and only then, will I rest. It's horribly easy to find people trapped in the rubble. My senses, designed as they are to seek out living souls, are ironically quite adept for search and rescue purposes. I can just follow my hunger, and it will lead me right to the closest person who needs help. The monstrous instincts I have that push me to find and kill food. I'm almost thankful to have them here. There's something deeply triumphant about twisting them towards the purpose of saving people, rather than hurting them. Back and forth I run, moving rubble, grabbing humans, getting them to safety, and returning to do it all again. I don't know how long it's been and I don't know how long I continue. I lose myself in the repetition of it, letting routine trump feral urge, becoming a machine instead of a monster. Whatever works. Whatever gets the job done. More and more people die while I rescue their peers. I'm never fast enough, but I still can't stop running. And then something new enters my senses, and my hunger screams too loudly to be ignored. Rich. Powerful. Certain death. The perfect meal. My hunger needs to know what it now senses, and I barely have the mental presence to be thankful I'm not currently carrying someone. I surely would have dropped them before sprinting off toward the source of this smell. Where's it? Where is it? Up in the sky. My eyes gaze frantically above the tree line, and then I spot it. Brilliant blue. A truly divine meal. How do I get it? I don't think I can jump that high. As I rack my brain for an answer, it turns to look at me and starts descending. What luck! I watch out of the corner of my eye as one of my brethren leaps out from the trees towards my meal, and a whip-like tendril of blue streaks from the food and snaps through them, killing them instantly. I tense and crouch lower as I approach. I will need to dodge those attacks if I am to eat. But even as I get in range, my meal does not strike. Am I being baited to approach? It doesn't matter. I have to approach anyway. My jaw aches for blood. Closer, closer. I accelerate towards my food, drinking in details that might be dangerous. 4 arms. I won't be able to overwhelm it easily. Compound eyes. Flanking will have limited effectiveness. Bright blue scales. Attacks other than my teeth and spines likely won't penetrate. However, the scales don't seem to cover the entire body. They almost look. Oh, it's armor, not a body part. Dragon scales, like Vita wears. This is a person. This is Vita. This is a person named Vita, and I know her and I can't eat her. I can't. My mouth is open wide to bite. My claws are ready to grab and gouge. My quills are thrumming with energy and drinking in light, but I still force myself to slow down. My sprint becomes a jog, my jog becomes a staggered walk, and with all my willpower I force myself to a step in front of her, twitching and hyperventilating, reduced to nothing but a war between instinct and reason. But it's one I'm winning. Holy shit, Lark, Vita says. How are you even? Fuck, okay, I got you. I have a bunch of food, and you need to eat, alright? I don't answer, of course, because I'm not really a person right now, but I mechanically chew a little when she reaches forward and carefully puts an ensaled meat ration in my mouth. I swallow as soon as I'm able, letting the ecstasy soothe my aching body and take just a little bit of weight off my straining mind. Vita continues to feed me, her indescribably wonderful soul filling me up like nothing else for the instant before the hunger returns after every swallow. Once I finally feel in control of myself again, I'm tempted to continue pretending otherwise just to get even one more bite. I know that would be stupid, though, since Vita can't be lied to. Not to mention how awful it would be to lie to her like that. She hands me more food before I can say anything. I glance at her in surprise, and while I'm not totally sure what all of her expressions mean yet I'm pretty sure she's smirking. Don't worry about it, she tells me. It's not like I'm going to run out. I blink slowly, not entirely sure how that's relevant. Of course Vita isn't going to give me parts of her soul until she runs out of it. I still shouldn't take any more than I absolutely have to. Why are your tentacles visible? I ask her instead of saying any of that. I never used to be able to see them, I could just sort of vaguely feel where they were. Weird complicated anima stuff, Vida answers without really explaining anything. Wait, I don't have time to care about this anyway. I have to go save people. Thank you for the food. I need to get back to helping. I'll come with you, Vida says, taking off into the sky again. I nod and sprint towards the closest trapped human. To my surprise, Vida manages to keep pace from the air, hovering about 10 feet above me. I suppose it was only a matter of time before the one thing I was better than Vida at, speed, also got overtaken by her. I can't help but be frustrated that it has happened so soon, though. Her tendrils extend outwards in every direction, emerging from painful-looking holes in her exoskeleton or yet more brilliant blue riths underneath. And then, they extend towards everyone I can smell nearby. All at once, the tendrils reach out, snaking and slithering through cracks in the destroyed city, touching trapped survivors one by one, and then, nothing. The people vanish. They aren't here anymore. She's teleporting them all away. She doesn't need me at all. A wave of unexpected despair has me start to slow down, but I quickly shake myself out of it. Even with her absurd efficiency, Vida can't really be everywhere at once and this town is quite large. I break away, heading in a different direction from her so that I can grab people on the fringes that her trajectory won't lead her to. With Vida's help, it takes less than an hour to save the rest of the people in the city. I was expecting my work to end when the last person I was running to died in the rubble, but she got here just in time. I shove away a painful and unexpected bout of envy and resentment, forcing myself to focus on how profoundly wonderful that is. I have been scared and angry at her for so many things, but this right here is an unequivocal good. So when she floats back over to me, there's only one thing I can let myself say. Thank you. She stares at me for a moment, and I belatedly realize what a dumb thing to say that was. It's not like she did it for my sake. The whole reason I'm here is because she told me to head this way. She was just finishing the rest of my job, because I was too slow to do it myself. But all Vida does is descend back to the ground and give me a small nod. You're welcome, she says simply. I figured you might need the help, considering how long you've been out here. I guess so, I shrug, unable to meet her gaze. Where's the next closest town? I think you've done more than enough, Vida says with surprising calmness. Come on, let's head back to Mima's. No. I snap angrily at her. There were still people alive here, which means there are probably still people alive and trapped in other places too. We have to go help them. They are getting help, Vida says. You don't have to help everyone personally, Lark. I shouldn't just stop helping for no reason, either. Vida sighs. Come on. Jelisaveta is worried about you. Let's go home. I cross my arms, fighting an urge to scowl. That's not fair, I complain. I shouldn't care more about Jelisaveta than I care about saving people, but I do. And I know that makes me a bad person, but I feel that way anyway, so of course now I want to go back. I shouldn't, though. I know I shouldn't. People are still in danger. Lark, please, Vida insists, holding out a hand. They will be fine, I promise. You, meanwhile, need food, hugs, and rest. I don't sleep, I remind her testily. I didn't say sleep, I said rest, Vida growls back. And you absolutely need the latter. Come on. Please? I shift my way back and forth, itching to just run off. But I guess I can't outrun her anyway, so I take her hand, and an instant later we are somewhere else. Immediately, I glance around to get my bearings, but our arrival point is so familiar that it's not even all that disorienting to appear here suddenly. I'm right outside my own home, and after spending the last who knows how many hours surrounded by the rubble of destroyed buildings, it's a profound relief to see it and everything around it still standing tall. Jelisaveta stands beside us, only mildly surprised by our sudden appearance, as her focus seems to be entirely on the sky. Back at it? Vida asks. Please tell me you at least slept. I did, yes, Jelisaveta nods. I just wanted to figure out what was happening now. It seems like the lights are moving, but they're all so far away even I can't figure out what they are. I glance up at the sky. The sphere that the Mistwatcher had been tearing apart and devouring is less than a husk now, nothing but a handful of discarded stones in the sky, like gravel thrown by a titan. There's nothing to look at anymore, and the Mistwatcher seems to be done with whatever it was doing, but it's not returning to us. It's still up there in the sky. I compare the current configuration of white lights against the black backdrop with my memories of them, and sure enough they're in different places than they were before. I think we are rotating, or maybe moving some other way, Jelisaveta says. The Mistwatcher isn't done. He's taking us somewhere. Terrifying, Vita sighs. Nothing we can really do about it, though. Anyway, I just wanted to drop Lark off. Have you two decided if you want to come with us to meet Nora? Wait, is that happening soon? I asked, turning to face her. Yeah, Vita nods. Apparently, Nora and I will have a lot more freedom in the coming days because the Mistwatcher is distracted. She wants to meet as soon as possible. I don't like the sound of that. Vita just shrugs, not really looking all that excited herself. I want to go, I decide. I know it's probably not a good idea, but I want to meet the woman that made my kind. I want to know who she really is. I understand, Vita nods. I'll come get you when we're leaving, then. You know that no matter what, Nora doesn't define who you are, right? Jelisaveta says. She doesn't get to decide who you get to be. What she wants from you isn't what you are. I sigh. I know that. It's hardly the first time she's insisted on telling me so, but unfortunately she still insists on doing the human thing where she tells me the same thing over and over again as if I didn't remember it the first time. It's not about Nora defining me anymore, though. I want to know. That's all. I know I'm not going to like the answer. I know I'm not going to be able to do anything with the answer. But still, I have this undefinable urge to understand where I come from. She's part of my very soul. How could I skip a chance to meet her? I want to go, I repeat, since humans apparently need so much repeating. Alright, Jelisa nods. Then I'll go too, if that's okay. Of course, Vita nods. I mean, I literally already invited you and everything. Anyway, I'll probably be back in the next few hours maybe, so see if you can help Lark relax. Couldn't you ask me to do something easier, like kill the Mistwatcher? Jelisa smirks. Hey, I grumble. Vita just laughs and flies off, leaving me with a smarmy-looking Jelisa. She shrugs at me and chuckles, opening up her arms as an invitation to hug. I accept, stepping forward and burying my face in her shoulder as I squeeze her lightly with all four arms. I'm home. Vita was right, I needed this. Not that I'll ever admit it to her. We head inside and are immediately greeted by Melissa, who is doing a great job of wearing the clothes I made for her without letting them sink into her body or dissolve. She's boiling some potatoes for Jelisa, so Jelisa thanks her and takes over, leaving Melissa and me to grab some of the caged rats we keep for our meals. We have a nice breakfast, lunch, dinner. I don't know what time it is and I don't know how many meals the others have had today, but it is nonetheless a beautiful moment that I'm happy to keep in my memory forever. I don't deserve this, I remind myself. I know I'm not supposed to think that way, but it's hard. I've been thinking that way most of my life, after all. Jelisaveta can explain why it's okay for me to be happy over and over again, as many times as she wants, and sometimes I can even believe her. I think back now and look at the times she held me in her arms and I did believe her, but they still somehow feel fake when I'm not in the moment. It hurts. I don't deserve this. I can't believe otherwise right now. But maybe later. Maybe I'll be able to believe in myself again later. I can remind myself of that, if nothing else. Sometimes it's possible, even if it isn't right now. We don't do much until Vita returns with Penelope, but that's okay. Just eating, chatting, and being with the people I love is more than enough for me. It ends too soon, but that's just how it is. There's always something else that needs doing. And with Vita around, Sometimes that thing is speaking to evil demi-goddesses that are also kind of my mom. There's a knock on the door, and Vita calls out to us. Are you guys ready? I know there hasn't been a ton of time to prepare, but I don't want to take risks on our time window here. Jelisaveta gives me a questioning glance and I nod back to her. I'm ready. No sense delaying, then, Jelisa calls back, the two of us standing up. It's not our apocalypse, right? You be good while we're gone, Melissa. Okay, Mom. Melissa answers happily. Jelisaveta freezes for a moment, then walks over and wraps the slime girl up into a big hug. You little rascal, she murmurs. I love you so much. I hesitate, shocked and a little confused by this interaction. This is the first time Melissa has called Jelisaveta Mom. I mean, she kind of is our mom, but it's weird to say that, right? Get over here and join the family hug, Jelisa orders me, trying not to cry. I guess I can't say no to that. I embrace them both, soaking in Jelisa's warm strength and Melissa's cool pliability. I really do love them both. Like I loved August. Like I imagine a family to love. Do you, want me to call you Mom? I manage to quietly mumble. Again, Jelisaveta stiffens, not quite sure how to answer. I don't know if I'm old enough or wise enough to be the mother of two wonderful girls like you, Jelisaveta answers. It's a bit embarrassing. Definitely not something I ever expected to hear. I continue hugging her for a little while before admitting, I don't know if that's a yes or no. I don't know either, she chuckles. But I guess if you want to call me that you are more than welcome to. Both of you. I'll try to be worthy of it. I squeeze her a little harder, and then pull away. Well, you're about to meet your competition, I remind her. I doubt she'll be a difficult one to beat. Jelisa laughs, wiping a tear from her eye as she gives our favorite slime girl one last squeeze and waves goodbye, following me towards the door. Vita, Penelope, and Nugas, of all people, are waiting for us on our porch. Only two moms, huh? Vita smirks. Amateur. Immediately, Nugas busts out laughing as Penelope puts her face in her palm, muttering something about it not being a competition. I'm particularly confused about why Nugas is here, especially since she's uncharacteristically dressed in some very practical light armor rather than her usual, rather less covering outfits. It very much looks like she's dressed to travel, but the only place it would make sense for her to be going is. Nugas, are you coming with us? I ask. She smiles, and I already know that means yes. I can't help but feel a little nervous at that, no matter how guilty it makes me. She looks exactly like Vita did, back when I was little. Certainly much more expressive, and her eyes are a lot more blue, but other than that, it's like a spitting image of some of my worst memories, and when I first met her I nearly had a breakdown. Tensions have cooled off a lot since then, though. Nugas and I actually see each other a lot, since she is responsible for a lot of the managerial work that goes into maintaining Mimas. Whenever I was needed for something other than my usual monster patrols, she was usually the one giving me my instructions. She would kind of be my boss, if Mimas worked that way. But of course, just when I was starting to get used to her, I learned why she looks like that. I learned that she is an animancy victim on a whole different level than any of my Revenant friends. I learned that she was, by her own admission, tortured and murdered. She says that she's a different person now, a new person, and she's happy that way. I can't help but find it horrifying, though. Partially for the obvious reasons, like the murder and the animancy abuse and all that. Why no, normal reasons to be uncomfortable. But I also find it horrifying because I consider the idea of being wiped away and replaced with a better, happier person to be terrifyingly appealing. I don't like how I have a yearning for it, for something that's so much more beautiful than suicide, but still far too uncomfortably close. Just thinking about it twists my insides into knots and reminds me of all the ways my mind just doesn't work right. The more I think about it, the more it makes me hate myself. And of course, that only multiplies the wish to be someone else. I thought I'd gotten over wanting to die. But is this really any different? I admit, I may have invited myself along, Nuga's grins, snapping me from my thoughts. It seemed to me that Jalisa would need some help keeping the rest of you out of the wrong kinds of trouble. I can't say it fills me with confidence to hear the implication that there are right kinds of trouble, Jalisa sighs. Don't you worry about it one bit, Jalisa, Nuga's titters. You can leave all of that to me. And in truth, I'm mostly just curious. I've been quite negligent in meeting my lady's future in-laws. We are not engaged, Nugas, Penelope mutters, blushing slightly. You wanna be? Vida asks casually. Penelope blushes far deeper, rubbing her hands against her temples. Everyone else goes silent. Did I just witness a proposal? Let's talk about this later, Penelope manages. In private? Sure, Vida shrugs. Well, if nobody has anything else to do, shall we get going? We all confirm that we are ready, and moments later an invisible force wraps around us, pushing up against the bottom of my feet and lifting me into the sky. I jolt in surprise and stumble, falling backwards onto solid air. A flying platform of some sort? I feel around with my hands as we continue to ascend and find that it's more than just a platform. It's an entire bubble that protects us from falling out and shields us from the high-speed winds as we accelerate. Gosh, and I remember having to travel in Vida's arms just a few months ago. People have often told me that it's terrifying how quickly I learn new things and become stronger, but this is another level entirely. We blast off into the sky at incredible speed, and soon enough I see the entirety of Verdantop below me. The massive, vibrant forests are of course the most obvious feature, the brilliant green doubtlessly giving Verdantop its name. I can also see Balduni, floating in sync with us despite not technically being connected to the main island, along with a much smaller chunk of island that I think is called Lisha. Two holes in the forest mark Skyhope Crater and the salt flats New Talsi was built on. There are plenty of other places I've never been to or really even heard much about. There's a tall mountain up in the corner of the island that I've heard be called Claw Peak. A big city, visible even from up here, sits on the edge of a peninsula, with a crowd of tiny specks that I think might be tamed flying animals hovering around it. I've seen maps before, but they have nothing on this view. As Verdantop gets smaller and smaller in our view, other islands become prominent, each beautiful in their own way. Even the stone they're made out of can be dramatically different in color, but I've always known that just by looking up. Seeing the tops of all these islands, seeing how dramatically different their trees can be, catching glimpses of animals I've never seen before, seeing structures that look nothing like anything made by humans. I realize how small we are. I can see, suddenly, how this world we live in could have been born from the fragments of 100 different worlds all devoured by our horrible, false god. Which one of these islands are we going to, though? You all may as well get comfortable, Vida announces. Even at this speed it'll be hours before we start getting close to Nora's island. It's pretty damn high up. Sure enough, as we enter the giant, empty column of air that the Mistwatcher left through, it becomes obvious that there are, goodness, maybe thousands of miles of islands above us. At least hundreds. I don't think I've ever seen this far before, so I don't really have any way to know the distance. Isn't it risky to get closer to the Mistwatcher like this? Penelope asks. I assume that, even if it's paying less attention than usual, it still won't allow anyone to escape. Don't worry, it's way up there but it's not in the top row, Vida assures her. Everything should be fine, assuming this isn't an elaborate plot on my sister's part to get the Mistwatcher to slap us. Which, no, I don't think is likely. Well, now I can't help but be nervous about it. Oh, well. It's not like there's anything I could do one way or another. I try not to feel bad about that. I'm not coming along to help with anything, this is just a personal interest, I guess. It's a social visit. Vida is going to meet family and I guess I am too. Nora. My progenitor. The woman at the other end of my soul. I don't have to care about anything else. We won't be fighting, we won't be staying long, there's nothing for me to worry about. It will probably hurt a little to get to know her, but I'm used to pain. So I wait, curling up and entering torpor since I don't really have anything better to do. But a few hours into our journey, the sky starts to change. At first, I think the white pinpoints of light are starting to wink out. But I realize that the ones that are disappearing are the dimmest, and it's not that they are going away but rather the blackness around them is getting brighter, tinged with yellow. It's very slight and hard to see up until the moment where, in the corner of the open part of the sky, a searing glimpse of unparalleled brightness peeks over the edge. It's so bright that looking at it is painful. It's so bright that just by it being there, I feel a little warmer. What is this? What is this scorching light in the sky? Is the Mistwatcher going towards it? Vida stares at it open-jawed, her mandibles hanging as she quietly says something in another language. What? Jalisaveta asks, holding a hand over her face to block line of sight from the glowing pain. God's avarice, Vida whispers. Back home, in Liriope, at the top of the cavern there is a great flaming ball of light made by the progenitor. She named it. The best translation I can think of is God's avarice. It means that which is insatiably coveted by the divine. But that. Jalisa gulps, that looks to be as large as the Mistwatcher. No, Penelope whispers, somehow staring right at the screaming, burning sphere without blinking. More and more of it moves into view, making the world ever brighter. Given the scales involved, and considering how the Mistwatcher still seems to be approaching it, it's larger than the Mistwatcher. Considerably so. What? How could anything be? Nora says it's called a star, Vida announces. There's apparently nothing to worry about. I guess this has happened before. What's it going to do with something that large? Jalisa asks. The same thing he always does with everything, I imagine, Vida shrugs. He's going to eat it. No one has anything to say to that, so the conversation drops awkwardly into silence. I curl back up onto the floor, carefully letting my quills stretch and start to vibrate, soaking in some of the excess heat that's getting trapped in here with us, beating down on us from above. We spend the next few hours like that, the orb that's too bright to look at growing larger in the sky as it gets closer, and the Mistwatcher growing smaller as it floats farther away. And eventually, Vida announces that our destination is in sight. We have arrived on the island of life and death. The place where my kind was birthed to devour the world. It's a solemn and unassuming place, made of stone so dark it's almost black. The whole place seems to be a vast tundra, with no forests on its surface, only the occasional shrub. But the island is thick, with miles of stone between its top and bottom, and already I see many openings in the sides of its walls, entrances to a vast and dark underbelly where I suspect the majority of Nora's work is done. Vida seems to know where to go, and sure enough we approach one of the great holes in the side of the island, floating into an empty tunnel lit by glowing lichen crawling on the walls. The dull blues and greens only cast a dim light, just enough to see by and nothing more. It is cool in here, the air thin, but it doesn't take long before we find a carved stone platform, flat and wide enough for us all to land on it together. Standing there, waiting for us with a placid smile, is a human woman, flanked on either side of her by what look like two servants. I took them all over carefully as we land. The servants are wearing simple white robes, hoods over their heads but nothing covering their face. I'm fairly certain that one is male and one is female, but they both look strangely similar, androgynous and unremarkable. Their faces are blank and their arms are clasped in front of them. They make no motion to even acknowledge that we have arrived. The woman in the middle, conversely, keeps a grin locked to her face, her figure exaggerated and voluptuous. She has long black hair, wears a smooth black dress, and most notably of all she has pitch black eyes. In exactly the same way Vida's human body had the whites and irises of her eyes turn blue, Nora's eyes, for this must be Nora, are a deep and all-consuming black. Unlike Vida, this consumes her pupils as well, turning her eyes into a homogeneous darkness without any indication where she might be looking. I have to admit, I find her appearance both strangely familiar and oddly surprising. A human? Really? For such an old monster, I never imagined that she would be human. Why do I find her so familiar, though? Is it just because she made me? Welcome. Nora says brightly, raising her arms in greeting. "You have no idea how happy I am to have you all here. Vida, it is so delightful to finally see you face to face." Her voice is beautiful and oddly soothing, but something about the way she talks puts me on edge. What is it? What's wrong? I guess she kind of reminds me of Vida, but the reasons for that are pretty obvious, so. No, wait. "It's great to see you too, Nora," Vida answers, stepping forward and raising her own arms for a hug. The hair, the eyes, but more than anything it's the face. I glance to Nuga's, and then I glance back to Nora. They look very similar. Nora could very easily be Vida's older sister. But they are not related that way physically, right? Of course not, that wouldn't make any sense. The body Nuga's is based on wasn't even Vida's original body. Nora twitches slightly as Vida hugs her, but her face snaps back up into a smile and she quickly returns the embrace. "Come, come," Nora insists, motioning for us to follow her as she turns and heads deeper into the tunnel. "There's so much we have to catch up on." It's then, as she turns, that I spot it. A thin tendril of flesh runs out from the bottom of her dress, barely as thick as a thread. It's not like a tail, but more like a cord. Or a wire. It snakes off down the tunnel, camouflaged against the dim darkness of the stone, but it's still there, leading off to who knows where. This isn't Nora at all, is it? It's like a puppet. A puppet she shaped to look like Vida's hypothetical human sister. Is she trying to be creepy? Her servants turn to follow her as she walks off, the little tendril of flesh connecting her to whatever is at the other end of this tunnel twitching and moving out of the path of her footsteps, never staying behind her. Like something is reeling it in the closer she gets to wherever it leads. "There's so much I have to show you, sister," the puppet says excitedly. "We're going to have such a lovely time." Chapter 192. My older sister's island is weird. Really weird. It's not even just the disturbingly textured caves lit by glowing mushrooms, although they are certainly a little strange. What are these walls even made of? Enamel? It's odd, but not that important. No, the thing that I really can't figure out are the souls. They are just, well, weird. Because I can't figure out which one is Nora's. The body in front of us, the one that looks like an older, more mature version of my old body, which is honestly really sweet of Nora to do. I only showed Nora that body once back when Tal and I split after ours trapped us, has a soul. It is a soul that seems like it could quite believably be Nora's soul, even. The problem is, so do tens of thousands of other individual souls throughout the island. My first thought is obfuscation. Nora must know at least some extent of the sensory abilities I'm capable of, so in the interest of keeping the sorts of secrets I do very much intend to puzzle out of her soul, she designed a wild goose chase for me. I don't think that's it, though, Tal muses. It's a combination of too obvious and too ineffective. If Nora doesn't know what we can do, she has no need for this kind of setup. But if she does know the full extent of what we are capable of, she should know that this won't stop us from figuring her out for very long. We look at this many souls at once on the regular, so it only makes sense as an obfuscator if she's confident about our ability being at a very specific and entirely incorrect level. True. So it's either one of many obfuscation tactics designed to spread fire different methods and hope one hits, or the copy souls exist for a different reason entirely. But what? Backup bodies. Multiple simultaneous bodies. Could be backup bodies, yeah. A hive mind, though. Maybe. But how would? Yeah, wait a second. These souls don't have tunnels to Nora's ocean on the Mono side. So how could they even be connected to her in the first place? Oh, you're right. Wait, what the heck? Is the body in front of us even Nora at all, in that case? We stare a little closer, both physically and otherwise, at the woman claiming to be our sister. She really did a great job with it, even if it looks more like Nuba's than it does like me after everything that's happened. But that's part of what's so weird. That body is a soul, and it seems to be thinking in a way that feels just like how Nora always does. She's looking at Nuba's and wondering why I brought a backup body, if it means I don't trust her, and being genuinely somewhat saddened by the possibility that I don't. It all falls in line with what I know of my sister. The two humans flanking her, conversely, don't feel like her at all. They, along with the vast majority of souls I feel, are distinctly different entities, more akin to what I'd expect from my soul sense. Their faces are blank and expressionless, but inside they're nervous, excited, honored. Definitely individuals with their own thoughts and feelings, not just puppets. Well, not literal puppets, anyway. Figuratively they probably are, since they look upon Nora with a degree of reverence that I generally associate with my own mind-controlled revenants. Fun. Fucked up, but not surprising. If we're very, very lucky we won't see anything worse than mind-controlled slaves on this family outing. And we are not very lucky. No. No, we are not. Penelope nudges me with a deliberate focusing of her mind, directing our attention to Nora's possible body once more. She's looking at the butt? I mean, I guess it makes sense Penelope would find an older version of my old body to be really hot. Wait, no, her attraction isn't what she wants me to focus on here. She wants me to look below the butt. Is that a tail? It keeps going. And going, and going. Oh dang. A thin cord of flesh snakes off down the tunnel, leading to who knows where. I can kind of map out the tunnels by sensing whether the tiny butt souls I feel are digging underground or in open air, but I don't have any idea where the little flesh rope is going. So Nora's puppet is on strings, then. She's physically connected to something else, presumably something that also has a soul. I'm not sure what that means, honestly, but it feels like it opens up a lot of possibilities. Does my sister just have a bunch of souls at once? Why? How would that even work? So, are you hungry at all, Vida? I imagine it was quite the trip, so I have a few things prepared. I glance around at everyone else, and since they all seem as bewildered and generally worried as I am, I just go with my gut. Sure. I agree. I'll never say no to food. Ha! Nora laughs. I suppose it is our nature, isn't it? Right this way, then. I took the liberty of preparing some servants for your stay, by the way. I didn't want to offend my friend Prodigy by making them look like Liriope workers, so I hope humanoid servants will do. They are just as competent and loyal, I assure you. Thanks, that's thoughtful, I agree, though Tal can't help but butt in and ask, Prodigy, though? Oh, you know, Nora titters. Your however many greats-grandmother gets pissy at me if I call her by her old name, but progenitor is just so stuffy. Not to mention nondescriptive. I'm the progenitor of far more species than she is, there's no need to be pretentious. So, you know. Prodigy. Okay. So my sister has a weirdly cute pet name for my grandmama. I wonder if I could get away with calling her that. Don't even try it. Okay, but if it's only once, don't. Ugh, fiend. Nora, or her puppet, or whatever she is, glances over my friends, seeming to analyze each of them as we make our way to lunch. She seems confused, mostly. A little intrigued, but mostly just puzzled. Penelope, she seems to understand. We've already told Nora about our girlfriend, and Nora seems to regard Penelope with tentative approval, her eyes drinking in every detail of the custom-designed body. For the life of her, though, she can't seem to understand what Jalisa or Lark are doing here, and she seems almost offended by my backup body, since she assumes it means I'm showing her plain distrust. I should probably introduce everyone. By the way, Nora, I say, awkwardly changing the subject. This is Penelope, my girlfriend. This is Lark, a friend of mine who wanted to meet you. This is Jalisa, a sort of friend and advisor. And this is Nugas, Penelope's aide. Penelope seems rather conflicted about me introducing Nugas as nothing but her aide, but Nugas preens like she has received the highest praise in the world, so it's hard to feel bad about it. They are all people who I've been through a lot with and owe a lot to. I hope they can make a good impression on you as well. Nora says, her eyes flicking over all of them one more time before she turns back around to continue leading the way. Well, I will naturally do my utmost to be a good host to your companions. I'm not sure the meal I have prepared will be to their taste, however. It's more for our kind, Dari. I'll still have my servants prepare them some nutrition, of course. Ah, here we are. The tunnel opens up into a larger room, with uncushioned tables and chairs and not really a whole lot else. It's remarkably sparse, about the furthest thing from the decadent room I'd expect from the abode of a god-queen welcoming family. It's, homey in here? I manage. Nora comments. Well, I suppose you'd know better than I'm not really one for interior decorating. Well, yes. That much is obvious. Why did we just feel a burst of self-satisfied amusement? Did she just tell a joke? Oh geez. Yes. That was a pun. On interior decorating. But how is that? Oh shit, is this cave inside her body? It's gotta be. Unless she is just fucking with us, I guess. Which she totally might be. Nora has everyone sit down on one of the basic tables, with me naturally sitting next to her and Penelope next to me. The others are relegated to the far side of the table, and Nora angles her body to better ignore them. I don't think it's an intentional slight so much as a preference to focus on us. Actively putting effort into ignoring them would imply she's thinking about them at all. I'm not sure if that's better or worse, so I decide to distract myself from the question by trying to figure out how Nora's body works. If I'm right and we are currently inside her, why? And why does she have multiple souls? And why don't her souls have a connection to her mono-ocean? She has to have a connection to her mono-self somewhere. Literally, she has to. We find it, we solve the puzzle. Perhaps, but we can't detect an entire island with our soul sense at once. Or at least not yet. Besides, it looks like the meal is arriving. An absolutely pristine-looking set of souls, fat and full and thankfully non-sapient, are getting carried in by a group of human servants. Once I can see them with my physical eyes, I'm surprised how small and strange the body is. The servants are basically carrying in a trough of dirt, the fleshy possibly plants inside the trough being the source of the tasty-looking souls. They look like some kind of miniature cabbages. The servants place the trough in front of Nora and I, giving small plates of white paste to the others. Nora reaches out physically, touching one of the flesh cabbages with one hand and extracting its soul to drop down her throat. I watch it dissolve into her soul just like other souls dissolve into mine, which seems to confirm this is the real Nora somehow. I can't help but feel an odd kinship, in that moment. This is Nora. This truly is my older sister, in a real, tangible way that, while not necessarily more valid than my many other family members, is far more physical. Or I guess spiritual. But physically spiritual, not metaphysically spiritual. I'm not alone. I didn't really care about that until now. I'm not sure if I do care about it now. But I can understand it. I can believe, in this moment, that maybe she doesn't want to just use me for whatever monstrous scheme she's plotting. Maybe she just wants a sister. I can hope for that, right? I reach out with a tendril and slurp up an eldritch cabbage soul of my own, focusing on the taste as it goes down. Wow. Wow. This is like the soul equivalent of butter, sugar, and cinnamon mixed together, rich and decadent to a truly unnatural extent. Even once the soul dissolves, it's abnormally delicious, the raw anima unraveling in thick chords that dissolve in smooth, easy sequence. It's like nothing I've ever tasted. Holy shit, I manage, quickly grabbing and eating another one. Nora laughs, delight radiating throughout the entire island at my reaction. And now that I'm paying attention, radiating really is the right word. It starts in the soul of the body nearest to me, then the tiniest fraction of a second it hits the Nora souls closest, then so on and so forth does the emotion propagate outwards. If I couldn't detect the pattern over miles and miles of island, I definitely wouldn't have noticed. Hive mind. It's gotta be a hive mind. Nora is a bunch of brains hooked together. I'm calling it. They're good, aren't they? Nora brags, eating another soul. Getting them to naturally develop like this took centuries of refinement. But the best part is right here. She pokes one of the now dead meat plants, and it starts to pitifully deflate. Self-replanting, she announces happily. The corpse will feed the seed of the next plant, which Big Brother will kindly reinstall for us. All it needs is the slightest bit of water and fertilizer. That is fascinating, Penelope agrees, ignoring the terrible taste of her milky white paste of a meal. They need a brain or brain-like organ to develop soul mass, yes? How does such a simple autotroph obtain the necessary energy to develop even rudimentary thought? Nora lights up with delight, and the two of them launch into a conversation that I absolutely do not understand and have no intention of attempting to. Instead, I look at my other companions. Nuga's frowning as she ingests whatever the fuck Nora served the others, as Jaleesa seems to quite enjoy it. Lark, naturally, can't eat human food no matter how broadly that category might be currently stretched, so she's just staring at her meal awkwardly. Want one? I ask her, indicating the trough of flesh cabbage. Sure, she nods awkwardly, so I pluck one and toss it over the table at her. I sense a flash of irritation from my sister, but she quickly quashes it. Whoa, this is really good, Lark agrees. Right? I grin. It's awesome. You shouldn't feed the Drothai so much of it, Nora comments. The abnormally high soul density could confuse the integration systems and trigger a deleterious physical alteration. Huh? I ask. She's saying I might become part cabbage, Lark scowls. And yeah, I don't want to risk that. Thank you, though. It was very tasty. You doing okay? I ask. Best I can do in a place that makes me want to bite the walls, she shrugs. Well, it seems everyone is done eating, so perhaps we should move on. Nora suddenly butts in. There really is so much I want to show you. Come along. Okay. That was abrupt. She wants attention. She totally wants attention. I shrug apologetically at Lark and wrap my arm around Nora's faux body as she stands up, flashing her an Athanatos smile as I give her a squeeze. Placate the god sibling, placati the god sibling. I might not be subtle, but neither are you, Nora pouts. I don't have to be subtle as long as I'm still reading you right, I counter. You saying you don't want the hugs? A flash of worry. At me reading her? There's something she doesn't want me to know. Oh boy. Problems for later. I'm not some child that you need to coddle, Nora complains. And I don't have the centralization necessary to put value in physical sensation, so the hugs really aren't needed. I feel like I don't have to say anything to that. I just stare at her. But yes, thank you, she relents in a huff. I am very excited to have you here, and rather unexpectedly worried you won't like it. I understand I don't have much connection to mortal sensibilities the way you do. Is Lark mortal? I ask, jerking a thumb back at her. Nora doesn't seem to have expected the question, turning to really look at Lark for the first time since we got here. She thinks about it for a moment, then turns and starts walking away. Probably, she concludes, apparently expecting us to follow as she talks. Or, well, mostly. Vrothaizo won't die of old age, but they aren't really designed for long-term sapience, as they aren't designed to be sapient in the first place. Your friend's brain likely doesn't have the memory capacity for more than a couple hundred years, at most. So does that mean I'll start forgetting things if I live that long? Lark asks, hurrying to follow her. I'll be able to forget? Well, for a certain definition of forget, Nora dismisses. Your brain is largely humanoid, it would seem, and consequently your foray into memory loss won't be complete, clean, or controlled. Just differently archived. There are easier and more effective ways to alter your memory than waiting. I actually have a few questions about that, if you're willing to humor me later, Penelope chimes in. Obviously I intend to optimize my own brain structure for long-term living, and I have quite a few plans on how I might go about that, but I imagine your expertise vastly outstrips my own on the matter. Well, yes, it does, Nora agrees, smiling smugly. I'm happy to talk shop later if you like. I might have a bit too much planned for today, but we can absolutely get around to it, Wonderful, Penelope nods, smiling back. And speaking of today's plans, are any of you interested in our newest neighbors? Nora asks, excitedly pressing her hands together. Some of my people managed to extract a couple of the sapients that were traveling down from that newly cracked planet, and I must admit they are quite interesting. Triple helix DNA, and remarkably stable. One of the larger naturally occurring sapient species I've encountered in terms of mass, too. They have quite the appetite. 4 legs, 2 arms, thick fur, huge lungs. I suspect their planet likely had a thin atmosphere and low gravity, or perhaps they just lived at high altitudes. Fascinating species. I'm so glad I can preserve a few samples. Preserve a few samples? Oh boy. I don't like those implications. I'm about to ask about them when my sister suddenly gestures at a wall. Behold. Nora announces dramatically as the enamel wall slides away to reveal what seems to be a large pit. Much like the rest of these caves, the pit is walled with a gray enamel-like substance, glossy and hard. As I walk to the edge and glance down, though, I also spot circular gaps in the hard substance, from which fleshy tentacles emerge, coiled and waiting. At the bottom of the pit, of course, are the aliens, a pair of them, thick-haired and muscled like beasts. The main part of their body sports 4 massive paws, though where I might expect a head on another animal there's instead an additional body segment, where the manipulator limbs are attached, and finally on top of that is the head. Having 4 legs seems rather less useful to me than having 4 arms. My 2 legs have done everything I could ever ask of them just fine, after all. But I guess I can hardly judge another species for inefficiency of form when it doesn't even have magic. As we stare down at them, the 2 beings stare back up at us, horror in their freshly given souls as they hold each other close. They don't know what we are, or what we want. For that matter, they don't know what they are, their minds ravaged with an insidious amnesia. They just know that they live in a pit, and now the tentacles and the walls are hemming them in, forcing them to make themselves easy to see to the unknown monsters gazing at them from above. Aren't they just the cutest? Nora coos. We grabbed 2 that we thought would be a breeding pair, but these turned out to actually be the same sex. They are so cuddly with each other we just assumed. But better luck next time, I suppose. Penelope blinks with bewilderment, briefly wondering if Nora thinks she's a man. Surely not, I did introduce her as my girlfriend. They look rather uncomfortable, Jaleesa hedges carefully. Oh, well, yes, I suppose, Nora shrugs. A new environment will do that to people, you know. Still, it's important to establish a baseline for their lives going forwards. Set expectations. Even if they won't breed, we can find useful ways to integrate them with life here, eventually. They might be above the preferred age for this sort of process, but the amnesia cancels out most of the issues that would otherwise be present. What process? I ask, since it's the obvious question on everyone's mind, and Nora will always be happier to answer if I'm the one to speak. Cultural development, dear, Nora hums, stroking her fingers down my arm. Do you not? Ah, you're still a princess, of course. I forgot that Prodigy doesn't give her girls the talk until they start preparing to make their own men. Well, you're a little young for it, but you do have your laudable ambitions, and I suppose it is my sisterly duty to educate you. What is this? I'm suddenly very afraid. There comes a time in every immortal's life, sometimes early, sometimes late, when we get fed up with mortals making the same mistakes, over and over again, Nora explains, slipping into a teacher-like lecturer's cadence. Especially so when those mistakes start to interfere with our plans, when even those loyal to us are so mired in their own stupidity and selfishness that they start to consistently fail. So we take over an island or a country or a cult or what have you and start making changes. The question then becomes what to change, and how. And I assume you accomplish this with consistent applications of animancy? Lark interjects grumpily. What? Nora asks, seeming offended. No. Don't be ridiculous. I'm not some 2-bit leech on my brother's tit. I'd have to use my own mana for that sort of thing, and my mana is precious. You think I can afford to cast animancy on an entire island's population? Of course not. Grotesquely inefficient, and profoundly unnecessary. It's far easier to just... Ah, wait, I should make this a teaching moment. What do you think I do, Vita? Me? Oh boy. How would I mind control an entire society? I mean, Grandmama basically does an animancy daisy chain, right? I muse. She influences her daughters, who influence their daughters, who influence their daughters, etc. So everyone, even the lowest rung of society, is constructed with intent by someone above them, ultimately all the way up to her. And the fact that we aren't mad at her about this should be telling. Should be, yeah. One old scary monster of a family member at a time, Tal. I focus on Nora as she shakes her head at me, indicating my guess is wrong. Paraji exposes herself to a lot of risk doing that, darling, and risk is not what an immortal should be seeking. A servant of any kind should not be an animancer, especially if you're intending to use animancy on them. That kind of conflict is how you end up with messes like this. She taps Penelope's belly, just over where her soul rests. And I can only assume that didn't end well for whoever made your girlfriend do this to herself. Between animancers, animancy is the last thing you should be leveraging for control. Never give a servant that kind of power. A few eyes in the room drift automatically towards Nugas, who beams under the attention with a Vulpin grin. I'm sure it will be fine, she comments demurely. So, what's the answer, then? Penelope asks, taking a half step back as she idly rubs the spot Nora poked. It's simple, Nora answers. You don't need magic at all. Just time. Mortals hardly need to be brute-forced into boxes when you can just raise them there. Our group of various mortals, and once mortals takes a moment to digest that. You're talking about indoctrination, Penelope says, breaking the silence first. Sure, yes, to start, Nora nods easily. Of course, there are mixed benefits to encouraging a culture to be uncritical, and their worth depends on how broadly competent and capable of advancement you want that culture to be. I've met a lot of immortals that make good arguments for keeping a population educated and free-thinking, but it doesn't really match my needs. So yes, I use indoctrination tactics, but I've also had 100 or so generations of only letting more pliable and obedient citizens breed, and that skews my results higher than you're likely to get on a first go at it. No one answers her. What sort of thing can a sane person say in response to that? Eyes naturally drift towards the two human servants Nora has flanking her. What are their lives like? How horrid is this place? Nora muses, following our gazes. Oh, you don't have to worry about them, dears. Neither of them speak this ridiculous woo-woo language you have me using. They are not going to be disenfranchised over us talking like this. They don't understand a thing. Ah, Penelope says, smiling agreeably. That's reassuring to know. Geez, she sounds like she means it. And feels like she means it. Oh wow, she means it. I guess it's a manic day for her, or something. I'm glad to hear as much, Nora beams at Penelope. I can tell you're a good influence on my little sister. I'll admit, I've always been worried about the company she keeps, but you've been quite the reassurance. Nora smoothly steps away from the terrifying prison pit and urges us to follow, our tour apparently once more underway. Obviously, I can't help but be annoyed with Nora shitting on my friends like that, but I'm not really sure what exactly to say to her. She can tell I'm pissed. Not worried in that way, dear, Nora unsuccessfully attempts to placate me. I'm sure they are wonderful in their own ways, it's just... well, I'm worried, that's all. A sister can't help but worry. Nora, the fastest way you can get me to hate you is by fucking with my friends, I tell her bluntly, crossing one pair of arms as I put the other pair on my hips. And yeah, a lot of my friends are currently mortal. If you've got a problem with that, I suggest you get over it or keep fucking quiet. I'm not going to stop caring about them. No, 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 no. Nora backpedals, her soul's wincing. Sweetie, you have it all wrong. I have no intention of harming your friends, it's just... never mind. Let's just continue, shall we? Hey. No. It's just what? I'm not letting this slide. Nora doesn't seem inclined to answer, though, so I focus on her soul to see what I can glean. It's still a bit confusing trying to figure out what she's feeling, because I still don't know how she works. If anything, I'd say she feels nervous? But that's kind of weird and confusing. Nora is not exactly a woman who lacks confidence. What is up with all these souls? This Nora body is physically connected to something, somewhere, and who knows what's on the other end. The souls that feel like her vary in size, from about average human level all the way up to gargantuan, Goldar-level beasts that make my mouth water. I try to figure out what they're doing, but frustratingly they mostly seem to be doing nothing. They don't move, and by and large they seem focused on a lot of the same things as Nora's local body. I don't get the final piece of the puzzle until Nora's tour of horrors finally gets me within range of the island's center. There, I finally sense it, the soul that has the uplink to Nora's mana self. By identifying the mana flow and tracing it around to the various souls, I find the anima microfilaments that link Nora's many souls together, the barely perceivable network that moves throughout the island. No. Not throughout the island, Tal realizes. Nora's not a hive mind. She's a singular mind that's simply so vast it encompasses countless brains. Isn't that basically what a hive mind is? No. A hive mind has multiple independent bodies. Nora doesn't. It's a singular body, a singular entity, decentralized and spread in such a way that it looks like countless individuals. But that's a ruse, not for our sake but for the Mistwatchers. If her soul worked normally it would be too big and she wouldn't be able to hide. Nora doesn't live on this island. Nora is the island. This entire time we've been on a tour of the inside of her skeleton. Oh boy. Tal is right, I can see it now. The way thoughts propagate through the network is just a massive scale variation of how they move through a normal soul, just split into discrete chunks. No wonder trying to read each soul felt so weird, they each contain just a fragment of everything that's going on in Nora's head. With that perspective I can start looking at all of her souls together like they're all one big soul, and while that still doesn't give me everything it gives me a lot. Enough to start asking a few leading questions. So, not that it isn't all interesting, but why are you giving us the full tour like this? Well, I don't often get guests I can show off to. Nora starts, but I focus on her soul rather than her words. Importance, hope, necessity? She wants me to know this stuff. She wants me to be able to navigate her. She expects me to be here a while? Oh boy. Well, I appreciate you doing your best to make me feel at home, I say, and I feel success and relief from her. Guess I was spot on. We all had a pretty long journey, though. I'm happy to keep chatting with you, but it might help if we head somewhere a bit more private where everyone can rest. Hesitance, anticipation, fear. And what? She's worried about something in the near future. She's worried about being alone with me? Even though she wants to be? Her tour was more than just things she wanted me to know, there's an element of guilt to it. Stalling? She's stalling. There's something she needs to talk with me about but doesn't want to talk with me about. I suppose we can rest if your friends need to, Nora hedges. Come on, sis, I sigh. Let's go talk about that favor I owe you, okay? I don't want it hanging over me the whole time we're here. Yep, my guess is spot on. I can feel it. She needs me for something long-term. And I do not like what Nora's idea of long-term implies. Still, she relents and starts leading us towards a guest residential quarters. Shit. Now I'm worried. Nora knows I'm not going to like whatever she has to say, but she's setting me up for it anyway. How do I get agency in this situation? It's not like I can fight her if worst comes to worst. She has me outmatched in every way conceivable. Sure, I'm way more powerful than I used to be, but Nora is an entire fucking island. She could easily overpower me in an instant, and in the mana world she could snuff me out like a candle if she wanted to. I'm honestly super lucky that she doesn't. I guess it's what I'll have to leverage. As terrifying as Nora is, She does actually care about me, and I can't really think of anything else I have over her. Geez, thoughts like this don't feel like a healthy start to a familial relationship. Guess that's my life, though. We make it to some private rooms, or at least as private as a room can be when it exists inside the cavernous and fully touch-sensitive bones of our host. Nora doesn't need her little older sister avatar to know where we are, I'm noticing. She can feel us move within her depths, hear us no matter where we speak. We are within her, and she rules this place. Your, friends can scatter themselves among these rooms however they desire, Nora says, gesturing vaguely at a few muscle-controlled doors. I'll assign each of them a servant to use how they please. Preference for male or female? Whoa there, sis. Penelope clears her throat. Either is fine, she speaks for all of us. Also, the implication that we'd be interested in making use of them intimately is extremely unpleasant in our culture, Nora. That sort of thing can cause severe traumatic experiences in humans. Oh, Nora says absently. Apologies, I suppose. I occasionally have guests with differing opinions on the matter, but it's all rather incomprehensible to me. I haven't had the instinct or capacity for traditional reproduction in millennia, and I never really made use of it even back when I did. I see, Penelope smiles, deciding it's probably best for everyone if she changes the subject. Forgive me if it's a faux pas to ask, but I have to wonder about your story, Nora. Souls like yours and Vita's aren't entirely natural, are they? Where do you come from? Who were you? The Nora body in front of us chews on the inside of her lip in a startling display of emotion, a much more nuanced facial expression than she tends to show. A complicated series of emotions matches her face, though they mostly boil down to not wanting to talk about this, but also not wanting to talk about the thing I'm trying to push her to talk about, and trying to judge if it's worth it to delay the conversation for a different one she also won't like. And apparently, the answer is yes. I would be surprised if you are at all familiar with my original species, Nora says slowly. There aren't really many of them left. And ultimately, I consider that part of my origin irrelevant. What matters is that I was a child who wanted to be a god. Oh, Penelope prompts. I wasn't made by someone else like you were, Vita, Nora sighs. I wasn't born as the embodiment of black mana. I was a weak little mortal once, even if I hardly remember it these days. But my people lived on one of the lowest islands in the world, low enough that sometimes the mist would rise up and smother us in power. We saw up close the scope of God. And where everyone else was humbled by it, I was emboldened. I sought to unlock the Mistwatcher's secrets, and to make a long story short, I succeeded. One scalpel to my soul at a time. Nora reaches out and, in an entirely unexpected move, pats Penelope reassuringly on the shoulder. So, I know what it's like, dear, she says. To break yourself. To be nothing and no one and to have to put it all back together. You're brave for it, child. To pursue freedom from the divine decree of death is the most noble of all pursuits. Trust in that, and the woman you forge will be stronger than the one you were. Then she turns to me, seeming unusually tired. Come on then, sister, she sighs. As you've already gathered, I've been stalling for too long already. I nod, letting out a sigh as my tendrils squirm against the holes in my exoskeleton. This is not going to be fun. Nora leads me to another private room, barely furnished with a bed and dresser grown out of bony flesh with soft membranes for blankets. I sit down on the bed, and she sits in a chair across from me. Silence stretches for a short while, our souls wordlessly tasting each other's emotions before she finally sighs and finds the courage to speak. You're much more perceptive than I expected you to be, sister, Nora scowls. Ah, huh? It's funny you should say so, I answer awkwardly. My soul might be a literal eyeball, but until very recently I've been the least emotionally perceptive person I've ever met. I've been making an effort, though, to be able to understand people. It's a handy skill. Yes, Nora agrees regretfully. I suppose it is. It's a skill I've left to atrophy in the absence of any peers, And today I've gotten to actually see just how much it's withered away. I feel like a mewling fool, not knowing how to host your mortals. It's just been so long since I've had to care. I can only imagine, I admit. I'm glad you're trying, at least. It may be too little, too late, I'm afraid, Nora scowls. This is far from all your friends, isn't it? It will be bothersome, gathering them all. Potentially doable, but I won't really have time to make appropriate renovations. So you do plan to keep me here, I glower. I'd gathered as much. Are you really that lonely? It's not really a matter of loneliness, Nora protests. I plan to leave this world, Vita. Escape our brother's grasp. I want you to come with me. What, just move your whole body, this whole island, all the way up into the horrific black nothingness above us? I ask incredulously. Essentially, yes, Nora nods. We can escape this slaughterhouse, Vita. I've been preparing for it for thousands of years, and nearly everything is already in place. I thought I wouldn't be able to do it this skybreak since it happened so soon, but with your help I can. That's the favor I want from you. I need probably about half your total remaining volume of mana. And then we are free. This is an insane proposition. It's not that I don't want to be free of the Mistwatcher's clutches, but the idea of uprooting everyone who will follow me, destroying my life and my plans to go shooting off into the unknown with a sister I've known for less than a year and just met in person for the first time is insane. This isn't the kind of thing you can just spring on someone and expect them to be okay with it. Is she really so much in her own head that she can't see that? No, wait. She didn't want to tell me this at all, that's why she was hesitating. Right? Oh shit. It isn't. She's still procrastinating. This is still the soft sell. That's already an absurd thing to ask me, I tell her. But it's not even the catch, is it? Uprooting my whole life is part of the upside to you. What is it you're still afraid of telling me, exactly? You're not going to like it, she fidgets nervously. Yeah, I gathered that. I gripe. Come on, spill it, Nora. It's not entirely about us, is the thing, she mutters. Our brother. You've seen what he does. He's carving this universe apart, devouring it piece by piece. Slowly but surely, he's going to snuff out our life that isn't part of his will. And if that happens, you and I, and everyone else in the universe, is doomed. It will only be slaughter and death. Whatever paradises we can dream up with our powers, they'll never be realized. It won't be possible. Not in the face of his hunger. So if we want our piece of this universal pie, Vita, we have to stop him. I can get behind that in principle, I agree, crossing my arms. Big Brother is a foul excuse for a god. But he's several orders of magnitude beyond both of us. How do you expect to stop him? You and I are the only people who can, Nora answers. We have to find our own worlds. Life free from his grasp. And we have to outgrow him. So that whenever he finds us, whenever his tendrils finally reach for us, out in the great black of the universe outside, we'll be strong enough to fight back. That doesn't sound like a plan at all, I frown. He kind of has a head start on us, sis. A bit of an insurmountable one. He'll grow how fast he can grow beyond what we can catch up to before we even find another. What are they called? Planets. Yeah. We're fucked. He's just too big, Nora. He has too many resources already. Yes, he does, Nora agrees. Which is why, when we leave, we'll need to kill every single living thing on every last island, and devour them in his stead. I find myself unable to respond, unable to even comprehend. It's such an absurd statement that I have a difficult time taking it seriously. Every single living thing? Every last soul in the entire world? It's an impossible idea to hold in my mind. I've been before islands ever, and the islands in the Mistwatcher's grasp number in the thousands. How could even Nora have that kind of scope within her reach? But the pit of horror grows in my belly the more I stare at her in disbelief. She's serious. She has both the means and the will. Nora is going to destroy the world. You're insane, I blurt before I can think better of it. What's even the point of killing the Mistwatcher if you're going to kill everyone on him? There are plenty of points, Nora says patiently. You have seen the truth of this reality. Our world is fenced in by the Mistwatcher's will, but there is a whole universe outside his clutches. And he means to devour it all. Every last thing that has ever been conceived, he will control, parasitize, and force to die. If you're horrified by the scope of death I plan to enact, consider instead the scope of death that the action will prevent. The continued survival of our brother is the worst thing that could happen to the countless living things in this universe. You don't care about any of them, I accuse. You don't care about that planet he ate and you don't care about the countless mortals you plan to kill. That's true, Nora concedes. But it makes me no less correct. You could argue it is worse for these people to die by my hand than it is for them to die by the Mistwatcher's tyranny, but the fact is, they will all die. We cannot cure death until we are free from our brother. Immortals will remain a restricted, exclusive realm for the superiors among us, and death will be the fate of all else. Is that the world you want to perpetuate? Of course not. I snap. But you can't act like this is the only path forward. We could just leave without killing everyone. Not if we expect to have a chance, Nora disagrees, shaking her head. It's like you said, Big Brother already has an insurmountable head start. Our only hope is to sabotage him. He won't be able to replenish his soul-growing stock for centuries, maybe even a millennium. That's more than enough time for you and me to track down a planet with life, outside his grasp, and prepare to start outscaling him. He's big, Vita, but he's not clever. With a few more efficient systems, we can win. I don't know what to say. What she's saying makes a certain kind of sense, and, damn, at certain points of my life I'm not sure if I'd have told her no. That scares me. I know now that I'm not a good person. Maybe I never was, but I certainly managed to get worse for a while there. Maybe it won't mean anything to stop this single, great evil from happening. But I can't just throw away all the healing I've worked for and not try. What can I do, though? How can I stop her? What can I say? A knock at the door sounds like hope. Penelope. Apologies to both of you, my girlfriend says through the door, but I couldn't help but overhear. Really? Even through the enchantments? Nora sighs. Well, come on in, then. It's not as though I didn't expect Vita to tell you. Penelope. I greet her, standing up and giving her a huge hug. What do we do? I tilt my head back to peer up at her face, where she frowns back down at me. Wait, what? Something's not right. We help her, Penelope says, and my heart goes cold. She's right, Vita. The world we want to create can't exist on the Mistwatcher. We either leave these people to be eaten by him, or we take them for ourselves. What? I yelp in protest. Penelope, this is exactly the sort of thinking we've been trying to. I know, Penelope cuts me off. I know, Vita. We're trying to be better people. But I refuse to be the sort of self-satisfied moral being that equates inaction to a lack of responsibility. Leaving this world to be devoured as the Mistwatcher's slaughterhouse does not save its inhabitants. Yes it does. I snap. It matters if we respect whatever time they have left, like we're supposed to. We have a whole universe we need to respect now. Penelope snaps back. Do you want to consign it all to this farm? Vita, we have to move forward. I know that it's evil, Vita. I know it's wrong. But the alternative disgusts me more. How could she say that? We've made so much progress. My first thought is animancy, because of course it would be. I pour through Penelope's soul, a place I know better than even my own. But I find no signs of tampering, nothing that could indicate anyone affected her recently. And Nora herself feels surprised, pleasantly so but still entirely caught off guard by Penelope's entirely genuine defense of her worldwide genocide plan. Worse, she doesn't seem to be faking either. She's being honest. Besides, I assume this wasn't up for negotiation in the first place, Penelope continues, turning to Nora's puppet. You've been planning this for too long to stop now, haven't you? There isn't really anything you can do to stop it at this point, Nora shrugs helplessly. The best I can offer is to house your loved ones here, to spare those you care about most. If you could give me a list of them before the end of the day, it would help considerably. I'll have my people pick them up. Try to limit it to 50 or so. But if there are more people you can't live without, I'll do my best to make it work. I can't abide this, I tell her. I have to oppose you. You know that. I do, Nora agrees, smiling softly. And I'm sorry, for what it's worth. But we'll have a lot of time together, Vida. I'm sure you'll find it in your heart to forgive me in a few centuries or so. Then she stands up, heading out the door as she motions Penelope to follow. My girlfriend shoots me an apologetic grimace, and then they both vanish down the hallway, leaving me overwhelmed and alone. I'm not really all that good at saving people. What am I supposed to do? Tobe continued,